at a look at the papers. We'll start out with The Guardian, talking about the exchange rate. The Guardian's looking at estimators pegging the exchange rate at 1,400 Naira to the dollar, as the Naira finds a fair value. That's what The Guardian's leading with, the exchange rate.
If you ask me, but then how far-reaching that will be, I guess time will tell. Daily Independent is singing a similar song this morning, but the angle is different. New CBN interest rate will put real sector under pressure. What does that mean? On the front page of the Daily Independent, as you can see, of course, that's been attributed to analysts. Who are they? What are they saying? The story, details of it, you will have on the inside pages of Daily Independent this morning.
Well, whether you're putting pressure on the real sector of the economy or you're putting pressure on any other sector of the economy, power comes to play here, and that's what the Vanguard is leading with. It says, businesses suffocating as energy costs shoot skywards. Vanguard's leading with something that has to do with power. So while we're talking exchange rate and all of that, the matter of power supply is really biting here in the country.
No doubt, Nyota. And at the heart of that, there are a number of people who point to corruption. And that's the lead story of Business Day this morning. That's what Business Day is interested in, talking about how the policies of the federal government are shooting right at the heart of corruption. Look at it. How Tinubu's executive orders strike at heart of corruption in oil sector. What's that all about? Of course, you find the details on the front page. They continue on the inside pages of Business Day this morning.
And while the executive is being spoken about on Business Day, the Nigerian Tribune looks at the legislature. They are ready to storm the session this morning. It's likely to be a stormy session this week, or maybe beginning today, as they look at the alleged budget padding situation. That story broke over the weekend, how the budget was padded, or likely there are two budgets in operation. Well, they say there's going to be a stormy session amongst the legislature today. That's what the Tribune is leading with.
Well, the stormy session is also, as you can see in the rider of that particular paper, is not limited to just Daily Times, beg your pardon, not limited to Nigerian Tribune. Daily Times is also interested. And it's not just the lawmakers that are interested, that are having the storms now. Presidency and the northern senators are having conversations. Look at this on the front page. Presidency, northern senators bicker over alleged 3 trillion Naira budget padding. Still, Nyota, I still wonder how these things happen. Maybe I don't know, but hey, that's the lead story of the Daily Times newspaper today.
Budget padding, security padding, life padding, everything appears to be padded, but the parents are concerned this time, and that's what the Abuja Inquirer is leading with, concerns of the parent as it regards security. How padded is the security situation? Is it something that the parents need to worry about? And they captioned it, school abductions, fear grips parents, authorities in Abuja.
Well, I still wonder how those abductions happen and they last as long as they did, particularly with the conversation we had last year about the need for us to have telcos assist, with the NIN-SIM linkage. But I guess that's one of the things that the Nigerian Observer is interested in this morning, telcos. That's what the Nigerian Observer is talking about. In telcos in harder push for speedy review of voice data tariffs. And look at the riders lament rising operational costs, dwindling Naira value. What does all of that mean? The details you find on the front page. It continues on page 2 of the Nigerian Observer, to be precise.
Now, in all of the things that we talked about security. I mean, the papers are all talking about different things: security, budget, I don't know, power supply. In all of these things, one of the things that stands out for me is that budget matter. The conversation around budget padding is not something that started today. We've heard about budget paddings from one end to the other, and sometimes they tell you they are padded for one reason or the other. Sometimes it is clear that we need to add to this, and sometimes we need to cut down. But at the end of the day, the question remains, how much in that budget is meant for one individual or for each citizen of the country? can you say, Ayo, for instance, how much is being budgeted for you in the budget of any year? That's a question that many people ask. They'll tell you that in other clients, a citizen can say, this is how much has been budgeted for me, for my health, for my security, for my education in the national budget or in the state's budget. But that is not too clear, because you find in each of these budgets, for instance, repeated items over and over again. Every year in the budget, you find issues like buying of papers, buying of vehicles, buying of equipment that do not expire are apparently budgeted for every year. And so one begins to ask the question, how is our budget cycle even done? That's a conversation that a lot of people have been asking about. And many organizations, civil society organizations, continue to look into these matters, like there's a budget, and there are other groups who are looking into the budget processing in Nigeria. How is it possible that our budget the budget process can be transparent enough for Nigerians to say, this is what is meant for me, and this is where this one is going to? Can the conversation around budget padding ever end? Ayo.
Well, I don't know really, if you ask me, seriously speaking, but perhaps that's one of the reasons we have civil society organizations like Budget, to at least give us some understanding of how those things run. But you know, when you talk about how much it comes to in Nigeria and from the federal level, my mind goes to, wait, add that to how much I should get or works for me in the state's budgets and in the local government budgets. And I have 10 staff, every one of them, all of them from the president to the councillor, 10 members of staff to any Nigerian, and I'm paying them to do their work, and I'm still spending money on them. And then what is happening really? I think that conversation is very important, particularly when you consider the issue on the front page of The Guardian this morning, talking about the fact that security agencies are not talking about the insecurity that is going on. Security agencies' mom, a search for abducted Kuriga school pupils continues. I'm still at a loss as to why that happened in the first place. It's also in the papers this morning that after Borno, after Kaduna, there was still some kidnapping in Sokoto State. So I'm wondering exactly what is going on here. My colleagues on the morning brief were talking about the rising spate of kidnappings, and it would seem like it's business as usual for some. There are so many questions to ask. This is not the kind of news we want to hear. We want to hear that every Nigerian can sleep with their two eyes absolutely shut, not just closed. And then it should also be a concern for us, Nyota, that many of these kidnappings are happening in the north. Guess what? Was it not 2022, or when did we have that information? Or was it 2021? When that news came from the federal government that there are 130 million Nigerians living in multidimensional poverty. More than half of that population, more than half of those numbers are in the north. And these are the places where these kidnappings are happening. And the governors get revenue allocation on a monthly basis. The governments, beg your pardon, in the states get revenue allocation on a monthly basis. The states get from that account on a monthly basis. And yet these things are happening. Exactly what is happening here? It should really give us reason to question whether or not our budgeting makes any sense or is impacting anything significantly. Policies are amazing. Policies are wonderful, but policies are not going to execute themselves. It's going to take people, and policies are supposed to be championed by some other environment. Security is one of those environments. If we discourage people from going to school, we are literally killing this nation in the future. Is that what we all want? I doubt that. That's my take from the front page of The Guardian.
No. There's no how anybody would want that to happen, where we discourage people from going to school, because at the end of the day, education, they say, is power. When you have education, you're sure you're headed somewhere and you're going in the right direction. But be that as it may, as you talked about earlier, there are budgets for all of this. There's security budgets, and the conversation again. I like when we talk about conversations that have been going on and on and on about security votes that are not accounted for. What are even down to the local government chairman, and indeed practically every head of every ministry, department or agency, whether at the state or federal level, they all have security votes for one reason or the other. Why do they even have the security votes if there is no security for Nigerian citizens? Indeed, you talked about the fact that the Guardian saying the security agencies are not saying much. What would they say? In my opinion, they don't really need to say much. They need to get to action. And are they doing what they can? Maybe yes. And we do thank you for all that you're doing. But can we go a little bit further? There is the other part of consequence management. Because the truth is, while we're doing the things we're doing, while there are laws, while there are policies and other implementation and enforcement of some of these things, if they are not followed through, it will amount to naught. We have laws. When someone goes contrary to the law, are they punished to the full extent of the law? Or do we see politicking going back and forth? Why should things be happening in one area and they're not happening in the other? For instance, okay, you talked about kidnappings up north. Down south, we're having raids in Imo State, for instance. That's what one of the stories in the papers here, that the security agency stormed Imo State. They stormed an IPOP hideout. Yes, they also stormed other habit where the bandits live in different parts of the country, routing them back and forth. There are a number. Last week, for instance, we understand that over 900 of them were killed by the security agents. But at the end of the day, those who are helping to perpetuate this situation, this insecurity across the country, can they be identified and punished to the full extent of the law? At what point do we say, I mean, last week we heard the First Lady talk about the fact that there should be the capital punishment for kidnappers. Can we see that being enforced at any point in time, where we see that when you do wrong, you are punished. When you do right, you're rewarded? I mean, we could go back and forth over and over and over again. At the end of the day, what we want to see is security across the country. We want to see our children in school and we are sure that they are safe. We want to be able to go to bed and wake up and sleep with our two eyes fully closed and wake up reassured that everything is in order. We want to see that there is power supply, steady power supply. We want to see that those who are employed in the public service, the politicians who are occupying different offices, are doing what they are supposed to do when they are supposed to do it, so that they can get the benefits that they are getting right now, and we are justified to say the benefits they are getting, they deserve them.
Well, yeah, one other thing that I will add to that is the overarching issue of patriotism. That's what is lost. Patriotism. The Minister of Information and National Orientation has been talking about us having that national orientation and all that charter that he's coming up with, for orientation purposes in the country. Amazing. But then, who is preaching patriotism? We've had conversations, Nyota, you would also confirm that, with various people who will tell us, how can you call me out for patriotism when the people that I'm seeing up there, up above, they are not behaving patriotically? Look at the issue you have on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning, talking about Nigerian presidency and northern senators breaking over 3 trillion Naira budget padding. Please, where is patriotism in that? You know what? Let's just move on to Nyota. I guess that we can call it a day this morning on the papers and segue into the next issues that we have lined up for you this morning.